Welcome to Professor Burkett's lesson on writing numbers and abbreviations too. This is a lesson in the art of grammar and of punctuation and a lot of conventions. Readings and resources. Writers may not memorize all the conventions, but good writers take the time to find the answers in the appropriate handbook or style book. For instance, the Turabian team's Manual for Writers is an excellent resource, and they have 2 full chapters devoted to numbers and abbreviations. Numbers in chapter 23 and abbreviations in chapter 24. For writing numbers, there are 3 basic rules for writing out numbers. First, if you can write out a number in 1 or 2 words, do so. Therefore, as an implication, writers should spell out numbers 1 through 100. Example, she loosed 99 red balloons into the sky. And since numbers are always adjectives, you should hyphenate compound adjectives. And that's why we have 1 hyphen between 90 and 9 in the sentence here. The second rule, use a hyphen if the number has 2 words, because numbers are adjectives. They're always adjectives, or they are implied adjectives. So writers hyphenate compound adjectives. Even when numbers stand in the place of nouns, numbers still imply their function as adjectives. Example, Odysseus wandered for 21 years, and I hyphenate 21 because it modifies years. Or 21 were the years of my wandering. So even when 21 functions as a noun, its implied function is that of a modifier or adjective. The implication of the first and second rules. Write out round numbers followed by 100, 1,000, 100,000, and million, and so on. Examples, the U.S. national debt is over $19 trillion. Or, from Raleigh to Washington, D.C. is a 300-mile journey. And so I hyphenate numbers because they're adjectives. And I'm not afraid of hyphenating large numbers, including trillion and 100, which is much easier than writing them out when they're round numbers. How about long numbers? If you can write out a number in 1 or 2 words, do so. So that's the steady rule. But for longer numbers, use the Arabic numerals. Write the figure. Examples. The national debt creates a burden wherein each citizen owes $55,000 as of the end of 2013. Or again, the journey from Wake Forest to Washington, D.C. is 260 miles. Examples. According to our steady principle, if you can write out a number in 1 or 2 words, do so. So, I write 12 disciples, 55 days, 99 red balloons, and I'm going to write 111,000 or 111,789,545. It's simply easier to write the Arabic numeral than to try to write out the entire number, as you could see. So writing numbers again. Third, never begin a sentence with a numeral. So that's a steady rule. If a number begins a sentence, spell out the number or revise the sentence. When spelling out numbers over 100, omit the word "and" within the term. Some examples. There's a bad example that begins a sentence with the Arabic numeral 121. It's better to write 121 years of CIA labor has cost taxpayers $20 trillion. But it's best to revise the sentence, so I do not start with a number. CIA labor over 121 years has cost taxpayers $20 trillion. Figures, or Arabic figures. 2 rules for using Arabic numerical figures. First, if one of several numbers of the same kind in the same sentence requires a figure, the writer should use figures for all the numbers in that sentence. And this is predicated on the assumption that these are numbers of the same kinds, for instance, dollar amounts. So here's a good example. An audio system can range from $99 to $2,599. Okay? A bad example is at the comes next at the bottom of the screen, where I try to write out $99 and then I use an Arabic figure for the corresponding larger term. Figures. The second rule. Use figures according to standard conventions of the discipline, such as the humanities or science. So when you have a question, refer to Turabian chapter 23. Well, in the humanities, the following applies. When you write references to books, include the Arabic numeral, such as chapter 23, verse 5, or Romans 5:5, or line 10, or page 105. So write out the Arabic numeral, just as it occurs in the book itself. Write the Arabic numeral for addresses, 201 Sunset Street. For dates, March 30th, 2013. Decimals and fractions, 8.25 or 8 1/4. Percentages, 25%, or you could write out 25%. Either one would be fine. The principle is just to be consistent throughout your document. Exact amounts of money, use the Arabic numeral. Scores and statistics, such as a 34-0 victory, and use the Arabic numeral. Slang expressions. The blogosphere runs 24/7, and that's fine, that's appropriate. Or the time of day, such as 9 a.m., and that is usually written with a lowercase a and a lowercase m with periods between them, or you can use small caps as an AM, or you may use large caps, just not large caps with periods between them. Writing out years and hours. Well, it's appropriate to use the Arabic numerals for writing out the year, such as 350 BC, and formatted in either one of these three ways. Or when writing out AD, which an AD precedes the number, which stands for Anno Domini, or the year of our Lord, in either one of these three ways. Or you can write before the Common Era or before the Christian Era, if you wish. Okay, and like 410 of the Common or Christian Era, if you wish, and these abbreviations always come after the number. And again, writing out the time of day, usually with the first type of example, where you have the A and the M with periods between them. Here's another example with PM. Writers generally style abbreviations of time in small caps, which is a typographical font available in, I think, all word processor. Writing abbreviations. Why do writers use abbreviations? Well, abbreviations allow writers to present lots of information in small spaces, and that's a virtue. So Standard Edited American English, or SEAE, has many conventions for abbreviation. Familiar abbreviations. For familiar abbreviations in business and government, you should use commonly recognized abbreviations, such as PBS, NASA, DNA, and CIA, as long as you think that your readers will understand the abbreviations. If not, you may wish to spell them out. For unfamiliar abbreviations in business and government, you should spell out the full title the first time you use it and give the abbreviation in parentheses. Thereafter, you can use the abbreviation by itself. Example, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, or CTB, was first proposed in the 1950s. For those nations signing it, the CTB would halt all nuclear weapons testing. Company names. Use CO, Inc., Corp., and the ampersand if they are part of the company's name. Example, Warner Brothers, Sears, Roebuck and Company. But do not use them in most other contexts. Example, Chrysler is a large corporation. You should not write corp as in place of corporation within your prose. Notes and source citation. It's helpful to look at all the different abbreviations that you can use within parentheses or footnotes. For instance, CF refers to compare or confer. For example, et al., which means et alia, which means and others or the others, etc., i.e., that is, ibid, in the same place, okay, in B, which can be used with periods or without the periods, and it's Italian, nota bene, which means note well, and PS, postscript. Units of measurements, charts, and graphs. Symbols are acceptable in charts and graphs, but not in essay prose. $sign is good for figures, but not words. Example, you can write, you can use the Arabic numeral plus the sign, $11, or you could spell out $11. Either one would be fine as long as you're consistent in your. Well, units of measurements, charts, and graphs. Units of measurement can be abbreviated in charts and graphs, but not in prose, essay, or literatures. Okay. For in charts, you can write 7ft for feet, but in an essay, you should spell out. He stood 7 feet tall, for example. Conventions. Abbreviations required in source citations are not appropriate in the body of a paper unless the abbreviations come within parentheses or in footnotes. For example, chapter and pages should be spelled out and not abbreviated. Months, such as January and February, should be spelled out and not abbreviated unless they're in footnotes or parenthetical citations. States and nations, you should spell out, for instance, California and Mexico. And you should not use the abbreviations of whatever kind within the prose of your essay. Although it's okay to write out Washington, D.C. and the U.S. as a standard governmental or geographic convention. So periods used with abbreviations. In all of these instances, it's good to use periods in most of the cases. So again, you can refer to the Turabian manual for specific guidance when you need it. Abbreviations rarely appear with periods. For example, FBI, GE, CIA, and so forth. Well, do not use an additional period when a sentence ends with an abbreviation that has its own period. Example, we will always remember Martin Luther King Jr. Well, if this occurs at the end of a sentence, you should not add an extra period after Jr. Well, in summary, when you have questions, refer to the manuals. While writers may not memorize all guidelines and conventions, good writers do take the time to find the answers in the appropriate handbook or style book. So find the answer in Turabian's Helpful Guide, a manual for writers. Chapter 23 for numbers and Chapter 24 for abbreviations. So thank you for paying attention during this lesson on writing out numbers and abbreviations. I hope you do your very best on the quiz, and I will see you in class.